Hey y'all, Melissa here with you today, and today's project is on my half-scale dress form. I'm going to show you how to take a basic cardigan pattern and hack it to have this wraparound waterfall front. So I have a free cardigan pattern that I am going to use to modify here that you can use as well, and that is linked below. And then I also want to say, think carefully when choosing your fabric for this project. You want something that looks as good on the back side as it does on the front side, because you will see both sides. And ideally something that kind of hides your stitches, because you will be doing a lot of stitching on this hemmed edge. And you want something like this heathered fabric will hide that stitching more and make it less obvious. So choose your fabric, grab your pattern, and I will meet you back at the camera to show you how to modify that pattern and sew this up. Let's talk about pattern modifications. The first thing is you're not going to be using either a button band or a hem band on this pattern. So the hem band, when finished, adds 2.5 inches of length to the bottom of the cardigan. So if you want the cardigan to be the same length as it would with a hem band, you're going to need to cut on the length and shorten line, spread your pattern apart 2.5 inches. Once you've done that, then we're going to need to modify the front piece to create that waterfall drape. Now, the first thing you need to figure out is where the base of the neckline is in the front. And the easiest way to do that is just to take the back piece and match up the shoulder lines, and then where that curve starts, that's where the neckline is. So just mark on your front pattern where that curve is. Then you want to measure from that point down to the bottom of your pattern. And note that I'm using a half scale pattern here because it's easier to get it all on camera and see what I'm doing. So I'm going to measure from that neck point down to the hemline, and I get a little over 12 inches. And then I want to come out from that point the same amount. And that ensures that this piece of fabric, which is going to get draped down, is long enough to hang down the whole center front. Then you want to measure the bottom, and you want to take about half that amount, and you want to move to a point out from the center front. And then, so we have this point and this point, you just want to draw a curve in between the two and connect them. And then this point here, you can see I also rounded it off a little bit instead of coming down to a sharp point. That's going to make it a little easier to hem later. After that, you just cut out the regular pieces for the sleeves, the cuffs, and the back. And to sew it, most of the first few steps are going to be exactly the same. So I'm going to take my back sweater piece here, I'm going to open it out, and I am going to place my front pieces right sides together with that, and I'm going to stitch the shoulders. When I am done with that, I'll put in the sleeves, and I will finish the cuffs, and I will do the underarm seams just like the original tutorial for the basic cardigan, and I have linked that one below. So here's what my sweater looks like once I've sewn the shoulders and sleeves and side seams and cuffs and everything. And the last thing I need to do is do some kind of finish all along this neckline and the bottom edge to create a hem. Before I do that, I want to stabilize these edges. Now, there's a couple ways you can do that. You could use hem tape. You could use fusible hem tape. You could use fusible stretch interfacing. What I'm going to do though with this particular sweater knit, and especially because this is a small sample, is I'm going to sew a very wide and not very long zigzag stitch all along the edges. So I've got my machine set to the widest zigzag it will do, which is 7 millimeters, and I've got it set to be 2.5 millimeters long in the stitch length. And we're going to stitch all around the edge of this before I hem it. Okay, here's what this looks like after I've zigzagged the edges and I went ahead and pressed them with some starch. And now I'm going to take another pass through before I create the actual hem. I'm going to baste with a straight basting stitch 1/2 inch away from the edge because that's where I want my hem to be. So I have my basted stitches and I use them to turn where the basting stitches are right on the edge. That helps me keep a consistent hem and it helps with these curves. Now I realize that's difficult to see on the fabric that I am using today. So I have linked an article below on sewing curved hems where you can more clearly see what I'm doing with that basting stitch. At the corners here, I did miter the corner. So I folded it in at a 45-degree angle and then folded the two edges in towards each other. And again, I realize this is difficult to see on this fabric. So I've also linked a post below about making cloth napkins. And in that post, I show exactly how to do the mitered corners. So now all I need to do is go along this folded edge and do a hem stitch of my choice. You can use a lightning bolt zigzag, you can use a cover stitch, you can use a twin needle, you can use a narrow and long zigzag stitch. You just want it to have a little bit of stretch so that it doesn't pop your stitches when you wear this, particularly along that back neckline. Okay, y'all, after I have hemmed that and I've removed those basting stitches, this is what my completed waterfall cardigan looks like. And I'd also love it if you check out this playlist. This is all my clothing sewing tutorials, so there are videos in there to make an entire range of wardrobe pieces.